is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern Jewish life and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldon.
Shalom, and welcome to the Jewish Spotlight. I'm Rabbi Tuvia Teldon, the director of Chabad Lubavitch here in Long Island. Tonight we're going to talk about a topic that, for all practical purposes, is a mystery to all of us. It's a mystery because it deals with things of the spirit which we can't touch, we can't feel, we can't necessarily learn about in a book all the time, but it's something that's very much of a reality as far as our belief system is concerned, as far as the belief system of millions and millions of people around the world. And that is the belief in the soul. And, you know, in our work, during the course of a day, we get many questions. And today is a time where people want to know, what does it mean that we have a soul? What is the belief in the soul based on? What is the idea of the soul interacting with the body? How do we deal with the belief in the soul as how it affects us in our day-to-day life? And we're going to try a new format to discuss this. I've asked my wife, who's been, of course, on the show many times, to discuss many topics that she speaks about literally all over the world. And I've asked her to come on board. We're going to talk tonight in an interesting format, just a give and take, as far as what is the meaning of this soul that we discuss and how does it interact. So Chaya, welcome on board.
Thanks.
We're ready for an interesting next half hour. We're going to take a journey of the soul and find out a little bit about what that's all about, because as I mentioned, it's a topic people really want to know about.
It's true. People want to know what is a soul and how do we know it exists?
Well, just to start off, it says in Genesis, Baruch, that God blew, that God blew into Adam, took Adam literally from the dust and blew into him a spirit of life. This is the first time we find mention of the idea of there being a soul. What does that soul mean? It means that there is something coming from the midst of God that was blown into or given into the body of an individual.
So it's part of God himself.
Part of God himself. In other words, we believe that the soul itself is literally a spark of God. It's not disconnected from God, and when God puts it into this body at birth and really at conception, that there is a connection between the body and God that takes place through this soul.
But I don't always feel God-like. How come?
Well, because the belief
it's
is,
not
of course,
felt more.
Right. The body is an independent existence. It is not just an extension of the soul. If it would be an extension of the soul, then everything we would do as a body would just be what the soul wants, the body would do. That's the goal. The goal is, of course, for us to be able to somehow take this body with all of its urges and all of its drawbacks and its handicaps and its hang-ups and whatever it might be, and be able to merge the two in order to make them one. That the body should be a conduit for the soul to carry out its will.
Is it possible for there to be such a balance, such a marriage, so to speak, between body and soul?
Well, our sages teach that there are many different types of combinations of body and soul. Some people have a body which it can be like a wild beast. Some people have a body which is like a tamed sheep. And that the soul itself, in essence, is a pure soul, is a good soul. And the challenge for us is to be able to really work with whatever urges, whatever things we have going on within our body, to try to merge it with the soul. And this really is what much of the Torah is all about. What does the Torah do? The Torah helps us to conduct ourselves in our thought, speech, and action. Thought, speech, and action are considered to be the three garments of the soul. Garments in the sense that these are the medium through which the soul really
manifests itself
and relates to the world at large. Through our thought, we bring down certain ideas from the soul. Through our speech, we, of course, manifest it to a much greater degree. And, of course, action is the greatest manifestation of the soul, because through action, we actually translate things from the soul into the physical world. So it's a translation from the spiritual into the physical.
Let me ask you something, though. If this soul is a part of God, as you say, so where does free choice come in? In other words, are we programmed? Am I pre-programmed, or do I have free choice? If the soul is an agent of God, where do I come in?
First of all, free choice is a key to Jewish belief. Without free choice, we're all like a bunch of puppets on a string.
Right, robotons.
And there's no real meaning to life because the challenge isn't there. So Judaism makes it very clear, and there's a sentence in Deuteronomy which says, that we have the free choice to choose between life and death, between good and evil. Now, in answer to your question, the free choice comes because the body by nature, coming from a different source, is constantly struggling with whether or not to listen to the soul or not. We believe that there are, in fact, two different types of souls. That which is a godly soul, and that which is what we call a more natural soul. A soul which is more concerned with natural instincts.
That's why I eat chocolate cake.
That's
Got
exactly
it.
the reason.
Not
Okay.
my godly soul speaking.
Right.
Okay.
And why you eat all those things, or why we, any of us, do things that are really not in our best interests. Why we're sometimes driven emotionally or driven by other reasons, sometimes that we don't even understand. But we do it not because the godly soul is telling us to do it. So there's this war going on sometimes, and some individuals can be a violent war, can be a very quiet war, where there's a struggle to do what's right or to do what's wrong.
So we can have mini victories throughout the day when we are when our godly soul is triumphant over that other part.
Right.
That's good to know.
And that's part of the purpose, because the soul descends into the body. Why does it come into this body? It has a purpose. God doesn't just dispose of all these souls and bring them into bodies for no purpose whatsoever.
Well, that's what birth is then, in
Exactly.
essence. When the
It's
when the
merge
soul
of the body and the soul. The soul, it says, can wait, in fact, for hundreds of years to find just the right situation, just the right body, which is the product of the right parents and the right circumstances, the right socioeconomic, cultural environment, in order for that particular soul, which has its particular characteristics, to be able to fulfill the purpose that that soul has to fulfill.
But the soul doesn't choose, or
No,
does it? The
God
soul
chooses.
doesn't choose the
God
family.
chooses. The soul does not have a free choice of its own in terms of just deciding whatever it wants or whatever it needs. The soul is being that it's so connected to God, it just carries out God's will. The soul itself, in fact, is always pure. It never becomes tainted by the body. It can be like a pearl that accumulates dirt and can become very, very clouded because of the misdeeds
Right.
that a person might do during the course of their life. But the soul, in essence, always stays pure.
Now I understand why the Lubavitcher Rebbe spoke so much about celebrating one's birthday, not with parties and horns and hats necessarily, but if indeed that's when the soul came into this world, it's cause for great celebration. It's a
cause
very
for
spiritual.
celebration, and it's also cause for introspection. It's a time to reappraise, just like Rosh
Your
Hashanah.
purpose, I guess.
What do we do Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah, which is the beginning of the new year, commemorates the day that Adam and Eve were created. It's the anniversary of that creation.
Right.
So as a result, what do we do Rosh Hashanah? The new year, we don't go out again and celebrate and make parties. It's a day of tremendous introspection because it's the birthday of all of mankind. So as a birthday, it's a time for really saying, have I spent this past year of time gifted to me by God, to be able to truly fulfill my purpose? And do I need to reappraise the purpose for which the soul came down in the first place, and then set some focus and direction as to making sure that I do next year what I haven't been able to do in the past to better fulfill the purpose for my soul coming into this
Right,
body?
I'm reminded of the scenario in Genesis where God asks Adam when he's hiding, Ayeka, where are you? And obviously we know that God knew where Adam was hiding, but we take on a deeper sense, he was asking him, where are you spiritually? What have you accomplished?
Right. Where are you holding in your life?
That's right, that's right. Now I understand it. Okay, what does this soul do? What do we believe in soul food? How does the soul get its high? How does it get its, I guess we would call it in Hebrew, chayas, its life force?
The soul coming into the body is married to this body. Now, in any marriage, there's a relationship there. And the relationship has to have a give and take from both ends.
Right.
So the body itself, through fulfilling good deeds and doing mitzvot, or fulfilling the commandments, or doing goodness and sharing kindness or charity or other good things, to bring more holiness into the world, to be able to be a conduit for the soul, that is the soul food for the soul. That is what brings the soul into a greater presence in the body. What is part of our purpose? That this marriage should be a good marriage. If it's a marriage of conflict, where the body is just off doing its own thing and has no consciousness of a
Right,
soul.
so there's not a peaceful coexistence.
Right, exactly, and there's a certain amount of total disrespect for the fact that there is a soul within us. A person can go around, of course, in a marriage also being totally ignorant of the needs or the wants of their spouse. And part of our sensitivity training as human beings and as Jews is to try to listen to the whisper of the soul, to listen to our intuition, to be able to hear what is going on inside of me. Why is there a voice within me that says to me, this is the right thing to do, this is where you should be, this is what you should do? A conscious that comes from the soul. The conscious is not just some place within our biological brain, the 3-pound brain that all of a sudden decides that this is what's right. A conscious is a part of us which biologically you cannot point to a certain part of the brain and say there is a part of the brain that's responsible for the conscious. It's part of the soul that speaks to us as to what is right and what the soul needs and wants us to accomplish and do in this world.
Can the soul feel bad? When we make the wrong choice, and wrong meaning whether it's not a fulfillment of a commandment, or we make a choice that's not ethical or not moral perhaps, does the soul feel bad?
The soul has feelings in a sense, yes. And the soul is what we call in gullus. It's in exile. If the soul feels that the body is in truth a conduit for its needs, almost like a chariot, let's say, would be a conduit for the driver just going wherever it wants, or a horse wherever the driver wants, then the soul feels that there's a completion there, there's a cycle that is fulfilled. But when there's a stop, when there's an obstacle, then the soul feels frustrated, and it's called what we say it's in exile. It's being, so to say, sent away from fulfilling its true purpose in life, and as a result is not able to do what it was sent here to accomplish. It can't fulfill its purpose.
I remember something about a flint stone. What is that beautiful blessing that was given?
Oh, yes, there's a saying that our sages share with us. There is a blessing that was given in the Torah to the Jewish people. And the blessing was that you should be like a flintstone.
Not like Fred.
Right, not like Fred. So our sages asked the question, what is the tremendous blessing to be blessed like a flintstone?
Right, it could have been more
right, a little bit more complimentary
right.
than saying that you should be like a rock. So the compliment is as follows, that in fact every single person having this soul, a Jewish soul, let's say, is compared to this flintstone that you could put it into water, again, into exile, and you could take it far from its source.
I get it. Go ahead.
And then you can take it out of the water, whether it be in a bath where it's there for a half hour, or out of a lake where it's been for maybe 100 years, and you could draw fire from it. That every soul, wherever it might be, has the ability to be reawakened. And this, in fact, is a proven fact. There are unbelievable amount of stories about people in situations they would never even guess about. You don't have to talk about people who were standing by the Western Wall in Jerusalem and all of a sudden feel their soul aroused. You can talk about walking down Fifth Avenue in the middle of a Monday afternoon, and all of a sudden something comes to you, or some voice. Where's it coming from? Is it just
or a picture, an image, a memory of a grandparent? Something
meaningful that all of a sudden becomes a fire. And you find this, of course, a lot today. There's a tremendous Baal Tshuva movement, a movement of Jews throughout the world who are aroused to connect to the soul, who feel the pulse of the soul, who feel there's something there, and begin that very beautiful and challenging search to find out what is that voice within me, and what is it trying to say, and how can I connect to it, and how can I be one with it.
How about this? How do you know what your purpose is? How do I know that right now...
You want me to answer that on 1 foot?
On 1 foot, 25 words or less. How do I know where my purpose lies? Perhaps I'm supposed to be across the ocean now. Perhaps I'm supposed to have another occupation. How would one know wherein lies their purpose?
Okay, I will try my best in a very short time to answer that question. There are two general answers to that. Well, I should say one general and one specific. The general answer for the Jewish people, and for really people at large, is to look into the Torah. The Torah, we believe, is God's wisdom. It's an emanation of that wisdom, and within it, within the 5 books of Moses, we see the wisdom of all of God's creation as far as understanding what our purpose is as a human race, both Jew and non-Jew alike. And of course, there are many mitzvahs and commandments for the Jews, and many mitzvahs also, commandments for the non-Jews in the Torah, in the Bible. Now, that's our general purpose as a human being in this world.
To live an ethical life, a moral life, to be just.
And to connect to God and take the world itself, which seemingly is not connected to God, and to connect it and to make it real, to make godliness a reality in our life. More specifically, God puts us into situations for a reason. And those reasons are in order to fulfill our purpose. God is not just testing us for the sake of a test, and God's not just putting us into circumstances just to make life harder or creating obstacles to make life harder.
So be in the moment where we are.
Now, if you are in a situation, you have a body. Let's say that body has certain talents. Let's say that body has certain handicaps. Let's say you're ugly. Let's say you're pretty. Let's say you have physical challenges. A person born with a handicap. These are not mistakes. In other words, there's a purpose behind why every single little part of this world is created the way it is created. The Baal Shem Tov, who was the founder of the Hasidic movement, taught a very beautiful and very powerful lesson. And he said that even a leaf that falls from a tree in the middle of a forest, that nobody knows why it's falling, and nobody really cares why it's falling. But the path of its fall, the timing of its fall, and the location where it finally rests on the ground not only has a purpose, but that purpose for the falling of that leaf is necessary for the fulfillment of the purpose of the whole of creation since the time that the world was first created.
So you have to pause a minute. You realize how heavy that is.
It's very, very heavy, and it's very hard to understand, but it's very beautiful also because it just infuses such tremendous sense of purpose into every single little part of life. So that if we talk about how a coincidence happens, and I'll throw out a little bit of a challenge to our viewership. Next time you experience a coincidence, don't call it a coincidence. Try to see why would it be that there would be this
amazing.
fusion of totally seemingly unrelated circumstances coming together at this point, and you're standing there at that point seeing it happening.
But do we always get it?
No, we don't
Does
always
God
get it.
always let us see?
But that's
the flip
part of the
side?
challenge. That's part of the challenge. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes. Sometimes it can take 5 months. Sometimes it can take 5 or even 50 years, or never.
Never.
Before a person sees why there was a reason why God did what God did, and that there was a reason why this soul and this person had to be in a particular situation, undergo sometimes tremendous, tremendous pain and suffering, sometimes unbelievable hardships in life. But nevertheless, eventually a person, if not in this world, for sure in the world to come, where the soul continues its journey, then the soul will eventually understand why it had to go through the different things that it went through.
You know that we've been asked this many times. Why the pain? Why the suffering? Why couldn't God make it easier, more visible? Why couldn't He tap us on the shoulder and just tell it to me straight?
Well, again, it's not a
Not that
question
you could
we
answer
can
for
try
God,
to, right,
but
exactly.
But try.
What we try, and of course, as you know, and as you mentioned, that we deal with people on a regular basis who are in this situation, and as anybody in the clergy who's constantly dealing with these situations, the fact is that God does have a reason for everything. Our sages teach in many, many different situations, and the Hasidic tradition goes into many stories about the journey of the soul. When we look at life from the perspective of our bodies, what do we look for? We look for situations that are going to bring us comfort. What is good? Comfort,
Right.
success, having enjoyment from our children.
Aren't those
seeing
normal?
Which are normal requests, and God
Yeah.
created us that way. But then we look at things, let's look at it from a different plan. And this is why belief in the soul and looking at things from the soul's perspective is so crucial, because when we look at life from the perspective of the soul didn't necessarily come down here just for enjoyment. It didn't necessarily come down here just for creature comforts. It's not here just in order to have it easy or to spend 70 years having the least amount of obstacles possible.
Okay.
It's here to accomplish a purpose. Now that purpose can come in many, many different forms. It can come through creating tremendous accomplishments during the course of one's life. It can also come by going through and experiencing certain trials and tribulations in a person's life where a person still maintains a faith in the one above, or still is able to have their drive or their zest for life, or still be able to have a certain positive attitude. Our purpose can come in an infinite amount of different forms, and we don't necessarily know that purpose only because of the circumstances we're in. In other words, you asked before about how we know our purpose. We don't really know what purpose God sent us in this world for, but we do know how we're to fulfill our purpose by the circumstances God gives us.
Did I once learn? Did you once tell me that where there's struggle, where there's difficulty, very often therein lies purpose?
Yes,
Is there such
yes,
a concept?
definitely. In fact, when I was in yeshiva, the head of my yeshiva used to teach us very often that when something is easy, it's a good sign that there's really not too much of your purpose to be accomplished there.
Mm-hmm.
When there's a challenge, and a challenge again, let's say if a person has a very arrogant or a very abrasive personality,
And
or
they-
let's say if they're very jealous by nature, or whatever it might be, they're not going to be affected by certain things. When they're affected by something, it shows that it touches their soul. And if it's touching their soul, it means that there's a reason why you are affected by it, and Joe Schmo down the street is not so affected by it.
Does everybody have to be tested?
Not everybody.
Do we all have tests in life?
We have a variety of tests. And tests can come in a form of some people being gifted with tremendous gifts, and their test is perhaps to see how well they can develop that gift. Some people are gifted with tremendous wealth. They don't have a test of making a living, but they have other tests of wealth, which in itself can be a tremendous test, or power, which can be a tremendous test. So test is a word that can come in many different formats. I think the main challenge God wants from us is for each of us to realize that this life is a gift from God, and to constantly try to develop those tools that God has given us, whether it be our physical body, our personality, our economic situations, the challenges that we have, the family that we have, the children that we have. We're not given children by mistake. It doesn't exist. A child is given custom-made to that family for that child to be able to fulfill its purpose, and for those parents to be able to fulfill their purpose also. So there are no mistakes. This is part of the tremendous thing of what our sages teach us, and especially Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, and the sages go into great depth. That it's very easy on the one hand to say that, well, it was a mistake, or I'm not supposed to be here, or this isn't my purpose. The hard part is to really face a challenge and say, you know what, I'm here for a reason, and I have to face this challenge, and I can't just escape it. Or I could escape it. I could pay maybe somebody a couple $100,000, or I could pay somebody $20, or I could just move, or I could do whatever I want to do. But facing the hard challenges in life is where you really find that your purpose is fulfilled. And I'm not saying that applies in every situation. The best thing, obviously, in these types of circumstances, go to somebody, get an outside opinion, go get some advice from somebody. Person has serious problems to deal with, they need help, and they need guidance as far as how to deal with it. Because again, the intermingling or mixing of circumstances that we all face in life can be so complex that it's sometimes hard to see through the forest to understand what the purpose is.
Are we allowed to speak a little, not abrasively, but a little strongly to God and say, excuse me, enough?
Sure.
Are we allowed to say,
Sure.
you've
fact,
tested me, I've maxed out,
we,
and play next door now?
We pray every single day. Every single day. There's a prayer in our prayer book that we say in the beginning of the day, Al tivieni liyadai nisayim. Please, God, don't test me. I've had enough.
Right, but if He does give me a test, at least enable me to pass it.
Right, and we should have the strength to pass it, and the wisdom to pass it, and the fortitude to be able to do the right thing, and to be able to know that, listen, this situation requires a certain response. It's different today than it was yesterday. Yesterday I had certain tests, and sometimes you find people who overcome one obstacle, and then people look and say, unbelievable, the person is just hit with another one.
Right, here comes another one.
Over again. What's going on here? I mean, God, how unfair can you be? But again, let's switch the tables. Look at another way. God sends us here for a purpose, not just for comfort, but to accomplish a purpose. Would the soul, after 70 years or 80 years or 90 years in this world, would it be happier at the end of this journey to look back and say, oh, God wanted to give it to me easy, so I didn't get a chance to accomplish what I was put in this world to accomplish?
Can we miss the point?
Of course we can.
What happens when we miss the point?
And we miss the point, we go on in this world. Let's say a person goes through and they live their life. Well, it's very interesting what the Kabbalah in particular and Jewish mysticism teaches, that God is a God of kindness, a God of mercy, a God of Rahmanas. And as a result, God always, because that soul has such an important purpose to fulfill, that God will allow the journey of the soul to continue to help it to fulfill that purpose.
One second, we come back again?
By bringing the soul back into this world if necessary. If the soul has not had the opportunities or has misused its free choice, has not done what it needed to do, then the soul can come back in order to be, again, put into just the right body, setting, parents, economic circumstances, social environment, to be able to find the circumstances to fulfill its purpose again. Sometimes it can wait a day, sometimes it might have to wait hundreds and hundreds of years just to find that tailor-made circumstance. But this is only because of God's infinite kindness that the soul is constantly given more and more of a chance to fulfill the purpose that it has to fulfill. And again, this is something that you'll find uniquely from Kabbalah, from Jewish mysticism.
Does the soul have to be born, or could it just exist even in utero? Could the soul just be here for...
I mean, to fulfill its purpose?
Yes, for six months before it's born.
It's possible.
That's
it's possible because that's a tremendous descent. When a soul comes into this world from a very lofty place where it's just surrounded by the glow of the Divine Presence, where the Shekhinah, the Divine Presence, totally absorbs it, and it really has nothing to do with physicality. Just to come and make that descent. Sometimes it can be what's called a tikkun. The word in Hebrew for tikkun means fixing, to rectify something. And we don't know that rectification could be something very, very small. It can be something very, very big.
But that could give great comfort to someone who had a child and the child never was born, that there was purpose even in that, you're saying. Just the soul being here for that limited amount of time.
There's purpose in everything.
That's very comforting.
If there's a purpose in a leaf falling from a tree, there's purpose also from any child being born, anything that happens to us in this life. When you're sitting in the airport next to somebody or in the airplane.
Right.
There's purpose why you two people were brought together.
Really?
What it is, I don't know. But to begin that conversation, to say, listen, find out, share, you never know what you're going to learn. Life is such a gift and such an unbelievably complex and beautiful creation that every single part of it, every particle, every event in it should be savored and should be looked at as a possible
So let
learning
me
and
ask
growing
you something.
experience.
As it comes to a close,
Yeah.
just tell me the return of the soul then. So death also is sort of a period at the end of the sentence?
Death is a period in the sentence as far as that stage in the journey of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
The journey of the soul continues. The body, of course, in Jewish belief, and as we've talked about in the show before, is returned respectfully to the earth as soon as possible.
And the soul
But
returns.
the soul continues its journey, and the course of time, we believe that a maximum of a year, the soul will maintain its situation, its position in the heavens, and hopefully even go into a higher and higher level than before when it came down to this world, because we consider this a descent of the soul for the sake of an ascent. But death is considered to be a birth back into the world of the home of the soul. The soul first comes in, it's estranged from its original place, and then it returns to its spiritual heights.
So it's just a change of direction. Birth is
A change of
coming this
direction.
way, and death
Right,
is going
right.
that way.
And like you say, comforting for people who have had losses, whether it be in the fetus or whether it be somebody who they were very close to know that that soul is still very much alive and well and with us. It's just that it doesn't have a body to be in.
And we
The
can still
marriage has-
communicate.
Well, it's not a matter of communicating. We don't talk to souls, and
Right.
we don't have that type of communication. But we do go, of course, to the gravesite to visit and to pray to God in the schus and the merit of the soul of the dearly departed.
Well, I learned a lot today.
I'm glad. Listen.
We'll do it again.
That's right. You can do it tomorrow at dinner.
Okay.
All right. So I hope that some of this information was informative to our viewership, and it's a topic which I personally love to talk about because I think it's very important for people to really come in touch with that level, that dimension of life, and that understanding that really there is more to life than meets the eye, and that we're not just a bunch of physical bodies walking around, that God is alive and vibrant, and the soul is alive and vibrant. The spiritual dimension of existence is alive and vibrant. We're just not always privy to it, but we do have a Torah, and we do have the Kabbalah, and we do have means by which we're able to look into it. In fact, we have a class at the Chabad House at 58 Comac Road, and that's in Comac, 11725. Our number there is 462-7383. We have a class in Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism and some of these topics about the soul, which are talked about every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. In addition to classes on many different topics, you're welcome to call up and to find out about it. My wife also teaches a number of classes there, which I'm sure you'll find very interesting. There are Chabad houses literally all over Long Island. Please call our number to find out more about what it's all about. And also, if you're interested, we have a website as well where you can check in to find a little bit more about what Chabad Lubavitch is offering for you for arousing your Jewish spark and your Jewish soul, and that is at chabadli.org. And we also have a superphone, which is at 76 Super, to find out a lot about what Judaism is all about, and especially this soul dimension, this spiritual dimension. If you ever have any inkling, any feeling, any sense that there's something going on in there, believe me, listen to that whisper and try to find out more of what it's all about. In the meantime, feel good about being Jewish, have a good evening, and shalom.
Mashiach,